Welcome to the weekly overview of the Forex market, specifically looking at the euro dollar and dollar yen retracement and potential breakout. First of all, though, be aware that this video is shown to a global audience but may not be suitable for everyone. Please visit admiralmarketsglobal.com, select your country of residence, and contact the appropriate entity for more details. Also, please be aware that trading for exchange and global financial markets in general are considered high risk. Please seek the advice of an independent financial advisor for more information on that. This video is for informational and educational purposes only. By continuing watching this video, you agree with this risk disclaimer and you are aware of the risk involved when trading. Let's start with the euro dollar. Last week was a bullish candle, but ultimately I think that this is a breakout to the downside, and there's a good chance that price will retest at least this bottom. Then we'll have to see, of course, how price responds to that bottom. Will it bounce or break? But for the moment, I think that any upside here is just a retracement to go back and test that bottom. So I'm bearish on the euro dollar. But there could be a break of last week's high. It was a bullish candle, so it could test the 38 or maybe even the 50 fib, 61.8 fib here around 106.75, 107. But it shouldn't break if my analysis is correct and is not invalidated. It shouldn't break above this top at 108.28, as you can see. So if I look at the daily chart, you can see a pretty strong candle. So a candle like that, I do think there's a good chance of a follow through to retest higher levels. The R1 I think looks like a pretty good candidate. There's a top there as well, double top and the 50 fib as well. The R1, the weekly pivot point, I think that could be a strong resistance zone for price to move down again. So that's what I'm looking for this week, is primarily a bounce at that 50 fib. Now if price does break below the double bottom here, then of course that could be a breakout on lower time frames. That could be interesting for price to move down to the S2 and then down to the minus 61.8 target there for further downside. As long as price stays above the pivot point, I think there's a good chance that this could just make a small correction and move up. So let's look at the 4-hour chart now. And we see that price is more or less going pretty choppily sideways at this point. So price is at the resistance at this moment. Therefore, not so interesting to go long. If price really makes a choppy bull flag like that and stays above that pivot point, a break of that flag could be interesting for a move up to the R1. In an intra-week, intra-day potential. Most interesting, though, for me is still the break below support or the turn at resistance, either the R1 or the R2 at these fib levels. But you know, this flag could happen and could be interesting. If price breaks below the pivot point, let's say there are strong momentum candles doing like this, for instance. In that case, I probably will be just cautious and keep an eye on patterns. It could break both ways in that case, and I'm just not speculating on that yet, or don't want to build a trading plan on this particular movement as yet. I think that that's best to look at on Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll have more webinars on those days. I'm taking a look at intraday, basically strategies, indicators on Tuesday and Wednesday. Nena takes a look at live trading session, and he has Monday his weekly setups on the majors. So we'll discuss all of this and more, of course, in these live webinars. Thursday, we take a look at educational webinar looking at money management. All right, moving on to the dollar yen daily chart, you can see that price is going sideways. But from my point of view, the very important aspect is this momentum. If we put a fib from that very bottom to the very top there, you can see that price bounced and used the 38.2 fib pretty strongly. So if it were to break below this double bottom, then there's a good chance that price will fall down to the 50 fib. And that could be a new bouncing spot. If price breaks below the 50 fib, then we can see extension down to these fibs, and I'm not bullish anymore if it breaks below the 50. Now, if it holds and price does not break below this invalidation level, these double bottom, then in that case, I think there's a good chance that price will eventually break above the resistance trend line and make a breakout to retest the weekly pivot points and eventually the top, and maybe even break above the top. So at this moment, I'm more bullish on the dollar yen. When you take a look at the 4-hour chart, you can see that at this point in time, you have the double bottom and the resistance trend line. So we need to break below either resistance or below support for a confirmation of that. But if I look at the internal waves within the 4-hour chart, I do see 5 waves here, which leads me to believe that this is a wave 1. I do see a 3-wave correction, which leads me to believe that this is an A, B, C correction within wave 2. Wave 2. So I think that this could be the wave 3. Price would need to break above resistance for that. But within wave 3, I think that this could be a wave 1, and this is a wave 2. So if I put a fib then on the next swing high, swing low here, I think that price, as long as it stays above 111.70 at this bottom, that we're in a bullish formation, I think that a good bouncing spot could be any of these fibs. I think typically the 50 or 61.8 fib for such a wave 2 is normal. It could be even deeper, but I think that any of these two fibs I think are the most likely fibs for the moment. Looking at the hourly chart, there could be an A, B, C zigzag, so I could put a fib from here to here, for instance, look for a push up to the 61.8 or 78.6 fib. You could get a head and shoulders there, a move down, back to support, and that could be a bouncing spot for the start of the wave 3 of wave 3. And those waves, of course, typically can last rather long because wave 3s are a lot of momentum. They push a lot. There's good momentum and impulse there. So that could be a very interesting price action piece if, of course, my analysis is confirmed. So I'm keeping an eye on this, primarily the bounces, the bullish bounces at the 50 and the 61.8 fib. That's my primary focus of this week for the dollar yen. Now looking at the pound USD, I think that it is in a correction, for a bullish correction within a bearish downtrend. So this is basically, I think, just a pause within more downside to come. So looking at the 4-hour chart, you see that basically price broke below this support trend line. I should make it green so it's a bit more logical than the resistance orange color. There we go. So, or blue. So basically price breaking below support, and you can see that price is in a nice downtrend channel. If we put a channel like this, connect the tops and bottoms like that, you can see how I do it, and you can see that price bounced off the bottom of that channel last week, and now it's getting closer and closer to the top of that channel. If I adjust it just a bit like this, you can see that it's pretty close to the top of the channel, and I think that the Fibonacci resistance levels should play a role, and the pivot point as well. So I'm expecting a bearish bounce at the 38 and the 50 fib if it gets there. I'm not sure or certain it must get there, but if it does get there, I think that that could be a good bouncing spot. I would probably adjust the channel just a bit if it does kind of poke through that channel a bit. Ultimately, I think 123, 123.50, a great zone for a bounce, a bearish bounce, short setup there to the target, and perhaps even further at 121.40, the minus 272 target, and the S2, the minus 61.8 target at 120.50, and perhaps even further down to 120, and to test the very bottom here of this chart at 120-ish. So I don't expect price to break above the 61.8. I think that price should not break above these bottoms as well. Otherwise, my analysis I think is invalidated. So will price get up there? Let's take a look at the hourly chart again. And I think that there could be an ABC zigzag up to that zone. If, however, there is a triangle being built like this, and the triangle does break to the downside, then I do think there's a good chance of a bearish breakout rather than an ABC correction. And I would take, or try to take, that bearish breakout as well. Last but not least, the Aussie, the AUDUSD, I think had a bearish breakout too of this very choppy upside. Price broke and then broke again, and now is in a downtrend, folks. So I'm looking for price to hit the weekly pivot point. I think once it hits that and retraces to that level, it could be a bouncing spot at around 76, 76.25. That's what I'm looking for, is a bounce at that spot. If I put a fib from top to bottom, around that area is a 38 and 50 fib. I think those fibs add extra confluence for downside. Strong bearish candle there too. So I think that this is just a retracement. Unless price really shows me some strong momentum to the upside, I think that this is just a pullback for more downside. And yeah, I'll just look for candlestick patterns at that zone for confirmation for downside to the targets at 75, the minus 272 target at 74.50 at minus 61 and S2. I don't think price will break above the R1, so I think a stop loss for myself above this top, above 76. Let me check. Above 76.80 should be relatively safe, and I think an appropriate stop loss at that spot. Thanks for joining this video. Hope to see you in the upcoming webinars. Check out admiralmarkets.com for a lot of articles, analytics, and webinars, of course. See you soon. Wish you good trading. Cheers.